Pep Guardiola has been involved in, this is an interesting video to me, right? You're watching this and it's like, no. Actually, you know what, I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
He's like the first manager I've seen in a long time go, you know some stuff. Watch his face as this changes.
Something very mysterious going on, I think it's fair to say.
I'm not sure. Have a look. All right, so here he is in a press conference answering questions about Mendy.
Pep, are you happy with Mendy at the moment? Are you happy with his progress and demeanour around the club and how he's progressing? Mendy?
Yeah.
You happy with him?
I was injured 6 months, 7 months last season.
No, I'm just asking, has he been around the club this week for treatment?
Now he's injured again. Every day he's in the training session with the treatment, yeah.
And you're happy with how he's progressing?
The treatment?
With how Mendy's progressing with his treatment?
Physio and doctor.
There's been a suggestion that he was late for treatment on Sunday and that you were unhappy with him. So, was he late for treatment on Sunday? Are you unhappy with him?
Arrived late, yeah. Late, yeah. That sometimes happen. In the last period, a lot of players arrive late for the traffic. Manchester is under construction.
What, on a Sunday?
All the city. And most of the players arrive late, and they have to drop the kids to the school, and sometimes arrive late.
But I'm talking about Sunday, so there's no schools on a Sunday. It's just he was at the boxing on Saturday night in London. So was that an issue that he was at the boxing? He turned up late for treatment, and it's annoyed you a little bit.
They should be here.
Yeah.
He knows it.
Yeah. So has he been made aware that you're not happy with him?
I spoke with him. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and when do you expect him back?
When he's fit with his feet.
Yeah. But do you think he'll be fit quicker if he gets to training on time and treatment on time?
No, it depends on now he's injured. So Mendy is not a big problem about physical condition. He's quick. The problem is was injured. He's still injured, and when he's okay, he's coming back. And after, when he decides to play, he's going to play.
Sam Lee of Goal.com is on the line. That press conference, Sam, was last Friday. So in the meantime, you've been doing a bit of digging about what's been going on with this whole Mendy situation, and you've got some nice, fairly juicy details about what exactly is happening here. And it seems as if, well, this is a kind of an old school type of treatment of a player from a manager, but writ large into the modern era. They're treating him like a grown-up while trying to stop him being a stereotypical millennial.
Yeah, I suppose so. I think the message really is they're wits end with him. They don't really know what to do. There was a story at the start of the season that I did about how he'd been fined because he was late to training in the build-up to the Arsenal game, and apparently he's always either the last to arrive or just flat out late. And Guardiola also made him move out of the city centre, and now we've got to the stage where he was late for 2 to 3 hours for this recovery session last Sunday after being at the boxing. Not sure if it was related or not. Seems to go hand in hand though. And as soon as he walked through the door, Guardiola said, "Get out," and then banned him from any first team stuff, so stuff with his teammates that would have been recoveries or meetings or whatever, for the next week. So it seems like the punishments are getting incrementally worse because they're not entirely sure what they're going to do with him. They're not entirely sure what he's actually going to respond to.
Yeah, which is mad when you consider the investments, the patience they've had through the injuries, and also the quality of the player we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, they've played him despite some stuff off the pitch that will definitely worry them, concern them, anger them. And the thing now is, if he is injured, which it does seem to be because he was late for this recovery session, there was a bit of a theory at first that he wasn't injured at all, but he does seem to be. And I'm just wondering now whether they would play him anyway, or whether it's got to that stage where he would be dropped as well, a bit like Leroy Sané, as we saw earlier in the season, and I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, they did play him earlier in the season, despite some off-field stuff that I can't mention. But I do think it's got to that stage now where they see no option really, and he is really important. In the same press conference, I asked Guardiola about his importance to the side in terms of tactics, because this season they've tried a lot of new stuff, but only when Mendy's played. Since Mendy's played, they've gone back to the same formation as last season, and fair enough, they've won every game. But in terms of what Guardiola wants to do, Mendy not being in the team is a problem. I asked Guardiola about that, thinking it might have been some kind of tactical answer, but he just went back to it being a problem when players aren't available. And he mentioned, if they're injured or they're not around, they can't be in meetings, they can't correct mistakes and that kind of stuff. So as you alluded to earlier on, Guardiola doesn't always tell the whole truth in the press conferences, and I've got absolutely no problem with that. He defends his players, but when he's got something on his mind, when he's got his bee in his bonnet about something, he will find ways to get it into the conversation.
Because that was a very interesting exchange where he's like, no, players are late all the time because of traffic, but there's no traffic on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, he was at the boxing. Yeah, he was at the boxing. I had to have a word with him. It's like, it's not that he got caught out, but he did get caught out. And then he was also happy to tell the truth instead of just batting it away again. It was like, so Ferguson would have just shut that down. Or Mourinho would have just made a joke about somebody else in the room. But Guardiola allowed the whole thing to continue in a way that you would suspect it's somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, but it's Guardiola, so he knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, because, I mean, to be fair, I would say generally he knows what he's doing because, yeah, he'll do it on his own terms, basically. Whenever he's criticised a player in the past, particularly with Aguero a couple of years ago and Sane now, we've gone in and just, after a game they played really well and said, oh, Pep, tell us how great such and such is. And he goes, actually, I want him to do more. And we'll go, oh, that's interesting. Maybe there's something going on there. And then in a couple of weeks we'll go, oh, you mentioned you weren't happy with so-and-so. What's going on? And he'll be like, oh, no, they're great. Because if he thinks we're going to start a witch hunt, he won't have it. But if he gets the opportunity to do it on his own terms, he will do it. So, yeah, he didn't throw Mendy under the bus completely. And Mark did ask Guardiola if he was around the training ground. So he didn't obviously want to let out that he banned him and that things had got to such a level. But he didn't want to let out a little bit that he wasn't happy with him. But you're right, Mark tested the waters with it. Are you happy with him? And he seemed like Guardiola was just going to breeze through on it. Yeah, he's fine, he's injured. But yeah, did a little bit more digging to get to a bit towards where he wanted. But it was a bit of a strange encounter.
It does seem that certainly the way we perceived Benjamin Mendy previously is a guy who just uses social media too much, and we saw that in his post-match comments after the Arsenal game on the opening weekend of the season, where he says that maybe he should just use Instagram a little bit less and then I'd be fully happy with him. But it seems to have, with the information you've got, with some of the other information we've seen over the last couple of weeks, that this is just a little bit deeper than that. The whole thing of being asked to move out of the city centre, senior sources at Manchester City Centre not quite happy with the company Benjamin Mendy keeps, and the ban from driving for 12 months suggests that there is a lot more here than just a blatant unhappiness with how often he's posting on Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that Mendy thing was an example of Guardiola putting stuff out there when it suits him, because after the Arsenal game, somebody would have asked, oh, Mendy was really good, wasn't he? And he went, yeah, but we'd rather we focus a bit more on his football kind of thing. So that's another example of that. And yeah, the ban from driving thing, 24 points on his licence. They found out, it was said in court that he wasn't the driver, it was somebody else. But the points were for not responding to the letters. But I think they also said in court that he hasn't been driving at all, which isn't true. He has. He's had at least one crash with somebody else and no insurance, which the club are sorting out. It's the obvious comparison is Balotelli, but a lot of people involved at City at the moment at the training ground, they were involved with Balotelli, and they are the comparisons they're drawing at the moment. It's kind of like you say. You get the sense that he's just a fun-loving guy. Instagram, Twitter, everyone loves him, etc. And they do. He's really popular with his teammates. But he is a bit of a loose cannon, and that's why Guardiola banned him last week, because the coaching staff, they don't really know what he responds to and if he's going to get back on the straight and narrow if he was ever on it.
Talk to us about Pep's relationship with Leroy Sané then, because there was a little kind of sidebar in one of the tabloids yesterday suggesting that he needs to be a little bit more focused. That was Pep's comments. And then you see Tony Kroos's comments this week saying sometimes you have the feeling that it's a bit like he doesn't care whether he wins or loses. So is Pep onto something here? Is there a little bit of tension simmering here? Because you obviously had a story earlier on in the season that Pep was downright unhappy with Leroy Sané's attitude.
Yeah, but I mean, I must say that's small potatoes compared to the Mendy stuff.
Sure.
That was just a kind of a get your head right. What's the matter with this guy kind of thing. And there were obviously other off-field distractions which were a bit more understandable. His partner was having a child, but that had also led to, I think, a bit of a row in the family. I think his partner is 10 years older than he is. I don't think the parents are entirely happy with the relationship, so that got a bit messy. I think it's his dad who represents him as well. So if his dad's the agent and then there's no real contact between them, especially if, you know, City would like to sign a new contract with him. That was difficult as well. But there's also things like not working so hard off the ball. And even when he's come back into the team, he's not quite been at his hard-working best as he was last season. But yeah, there was a little bit of a focus thing. But it's funny at City because whenever Aguero was looking like he was going to get out of the team, Gabriel Jesus would get injured. And that happened twice. And Aguero really took advantage of that. And now it looks like Sane's going to be out of the team for a bit, and Mendy's injured, so Sane's got a chance to get back in the team and show what he can do. It's funny how it works, but yeah, there was a bit of a concern about his focus. Guardiola was asked about it again at the weekend after the Brighton game, and he finished by, again, kind of on his own terms, said all the players have to focus. If they don't, they know what will happen. And that's a bit of a reference to obviously what happened with Sane, and I think it's also a reference, although he didn't mention him, to the Mendy stuff as well.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a watch this space sort of situation, because with the depth and the quality that Manchester City have, there is a chance that even if things are not going so well in the dressing room, things on the pitch might still go seamlessly. But the one last thing I wanted to ask you, Sam, and you mentioned it in the article, is the difference in approach that Guardiola takes in terms of press conferences and how Guardiola speaks to his players in the dressing room. And you cite, obviously, the Amazon documentary saying that I will defend you to the hilt in public, but in the dressing room I'll tell you what you think. Do you think since the documentary has been released, have you seen a different Pep Guardiola in press conferences? Has he been a little bit more guarded since we've seen that little bit of an insight into his media dealings?
No, I think it's been the same all the way through. The funny thing is, if he'd have said that in the documentary, it might have been forgotten, but that was used on the trailer, not the one trailer they did about 6 weeks before the documentary came out. And it was plastered on all the billboards around Manchester, and I guess around, there might have been some others around the country as well. So, you know, the fans have seen that, and the fans themselves, whenever Guardiola was defending people, or after the Lyon game, for example, he didn't do the press conference afterwards because he was banned, but he was in on the Friday, and he said, oh, they got nothing to apologise for, etc. And all the fans would be like, oh, but we know he's just defending them in public. So, like, the game's up in that respect. The way that Amazon put it all over the hoardings, everyone knows now what Guardiola does, but I don't think he's changed, because if that's his approach, that's his approach. And if it means we don't get headlines, then he's going to carry on doing that, and he's going to want to keep everything in house, which is the best way to manage his players according to what he's done in the last 10 years, and it's been working for him, hasn't it? So
yeah, totally.
We all know the game, but it's not going to change.
Sam, it's not quite must win tonight, but it's definitely they can't lose tonight. And actually, an away win at this stage of the Champions League, having lost your opening home fixture, wouldn't go amiss. Are they going to win tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I did say that against Lyon, and that's the problem with these things, isn't it? But they should do. If there wasn't, I don't think it was focus against Lyon. I think they had a lack of pace, a lack of dynamism in the team. They left a lot of their players who can cover a lot of space quickly on the bench. Mendy was injured. Sane didn't play. Aguero didn't play. De Bruyne was out, obviously, and Bernardo Silva was on the right rather than through the middle. You've got players there who can use the ball a lot quicker than everyone who was on the pitch. I think more of those types of players will play tonight. I think there'll be a bit of a difference in that respect. I think they'll be a lot more motivated. And Hoffenheim, you can see them playing the game of their lives, kind of thing. It's being billed as the biggest game they've ever had. Nagelsmann says their game plan, they're going to be courageous. And that makes you think, oh, they might do something. But I remember thinking it's about Feyenoord last season, and City were 4-0 up about half an hour in.
Yeah.
So they've got the quality to do that. But you're right, it's an important game. And they've got another away game next. They're not back at home. They've got Shakhtar away next. So they could definitely do with winning this one.
Sam, great stuff. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks very much.
That's Sam Lee of Goal.com live from Hoffenheim ahead of the game this evening.